Okay, I think we can get started. Good morning again. Thank you all for joining us for the coffee talk today. The topic this morning is SSIS frequently asked questions for items that we see come through the SSIS help desk and some newer items to go over with both SSIS, Fiscal, and Worker. And Marcia, do you want to pull up the presentation? I'm not seeing it on my side now. Thank you. All right, we can go to the next slide for our agenda today. And we will have some question opportunities at the end of each section that we present, so viewers can enter their questions in the Q&A at any time as well. We have a lot of content to cover today, so we may go past our scheduled hour and a half. This presentation is being recorded, and the PowerPoint will also be posted after today's session for viewing if we do go longer than the scheduled time today. Just a reminder to use the Q&A, please, for any questions related to the content. We will monitor both the chat and the Q&A throughout the presentation. And we'll get started with introductions. I'm Sam Breidenbach. I'm the newest of our fiscal subject matter experts with SSIS Business Operations. I'll let Molly introduce herself next.
Good morning, everyone. This is Molly Kaler, SSIS Fiscal SME OG, I guess, under SSIS Business Operations. Thanks to everyone for attending today.
I'll go next. Hello, my name is Erica Jepson, and I am a child welfare subject matter expert with SSI Business Operations. And thank you, everyone, for being with us this morning.
I'm Marcia Riss. I am another SSIS worker side of the SMEs with Erica. And yeah, we're happy to have everybody here this morning. Let's see, let's hand it off to Kim. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kim Lunds. I'm a business analyst with SSIS Worker. I'm just here to help answer questions if I can.
All right, Shauna, did you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I got to remember to take myself off of mute. Hi, my name is Shauna Myers, and I'm the lead for the SSIS Help Desk.
Thank you. And we also have with us a special guest today. Tom Jones is here for a minute to give some announcements and updates. So Tom, I'll let you introduce yourself and get us started.
Sure. I'm Tom. I'm the Minute MAD Director, which encompasses SSIS along with a variety of other things, Elisi and MinChoice's Legacy, Net Study 2, variety of other things. I'm here to answer any questions you might have about what's going on with SSIS infrastructure and performance, which we've been looking at quite heavily for over the last year. So, and I feel special. I'm the special guest. I think Kim is more special than me, but that's fine. So do you want me to just get into what's going on? We move right into it? Okay. So over the last year, we've been meeting a couple times a week to talk about performance. We've been meeting on Fridays with county administrators. We've been meeting with mentors. We've been asking people to call into the help desk. Thank you, all you help desk folks, for answering those calls to start tracking what's going on with SSIS. About a month ago, about 4 weeks ago, we had a week that was considerably worse than almost any other week we've ever had in SSIS. The system was down 4 times in 5 days. And many of you probably didn't even notice because we caught it at 7 and it was up by 8 or something akin to that. One of the times it was down considerably longer than that for the afternoon. So I apologize for all of that. So let me get into it a little bit. What's going on? What's going on with your system that's causing it to kind of wobble and shut down? So SSIS is a classic client server application. So a very big front end application, which makes it different from a web application, as you probably notice. It has bigger grids that hold more data that can be exported into spreadsheets. We have a document system you use. And there's a lot of things that go into a thick client that make SSIS kind of unique. When we pulled out of the counties, so for those of you that are old timers, and by old timers I mean longer than 5 years, right? We used to host in the county, and every county had their own database and infrastructure, and but we needed to pull Oracle out of the counties and host locally in the state. And the question was, how do we do that? So we replatformed on Horizon, which has had a rocky last 3 years of a variety of things going wrong. The most recent thing that has caused trouble are two things. And I don't want to get too technical, so I'll use words like gizmo and thingy if you want. But there's a network checkpoint infrastructure problem that causes our systems network to go down and unable to connect to Horizon. So your Horizon client can't connect. So your Horizon widget on your laptop can't connect to the Horizon client very well. That affects more than SSIS. That affects a number of different agencies at DHS and non-DHS agencies. It's kind of a bigger deal, and those were the result of the longer outages. That has happened, I believe, 3 times in the last 2 months, where those appliances stopped working and people couldn't connect. Minute Enterprise has purchased new appliances that are installed or being installed to take care of that problem. I believe those are, I don't want to say, but I think it's imminent or they've already been installed to take care of those issues. The other issue is a little more problematic, and that results in short outages, usually in the morning. So when we bring up our Horizon clients, we reset them every morning at 4:30. They come up. There's 129 of them that hosts about 40 people each. So you can kind of do the math on what we have for capacity for people to run SSIS. Occasionally, one of those servers can't run the application. It's like the application didn't get loaded and it's hidden and it's not found on the server. So that's been fairly persistent. We've been looking at that. We have new hardware that's being installed for that as well. And there's a possible upgrade to Horizon's infrastructure that's been purchased and is on its way and will be installed as soon as it gets here. So that's a big purchase by Minute Enterprise, a couple $1 million worth of hardware to alleviate this concern for the counties. All of that, what I just told you, was very difficult to find. So that's all inner workings behind the scenes. Very little of it has to do with anything with the application or the Horizon client that you're running, or even the Horizon servers that are running behind the scenes. Those all look healthy and good. It's really the networking and the inner guts behind where things are hosted that were giving us trouble. And so let's be honest as well. The governor came out with a mandate that said everybody needs to upgrade everything and there can be no security holes. So the infrastructure behind the scenes has gone through quite a turmoil over the last 3 months, which has caused some instabilities as well. So that's what's been going on, and that's what we're doing to fix it. Hopefully you can take away what that means. Does anybody have any questions on that? Could I just bore you? I mean, developers talk and people fall asleep. I know. So let's talk about some of the application things, which I can actually do something about. So there have been other reports of things across the system that we're taking a closer look at. One of which is child CFC report. Larger counties are finding that has gotten increasingly slower to unworkable. So that report is a big monster report. I don't know if you probably all know what it is, but it grinds a lot of data and presents it in nice, pretty pictures, and it's really neat looking. But some of the larger counties are finding that it's taking an exorbitant amount of time to run now. So we don't know if there's a query that we tweaked or if there's some data elements that were added that caused an issue. So we're taking a good look at that report to see what we can do to speed it up or fix it. One of the options we're actually talking about is giving you as a worker the option to run a report behind the scenes and be notified when it's complete. So when you run one of these big monster reports, you can go on and do other work while it's running in the database behind the scenes, and then you would get notified when it's complete, and then you could click on it. So we're considering things like that. One of the other things that we're looking at is payment entry, which is something your fiscal people are aware of. I'm guessing most social workers probably aren't aware of this issue, but when we built the payment batch system, we didn't foresee payment batches going over 20 or 30 payments per batch, kind of a daily process kind of a thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, counties have decided that what they'd really like to do is put all their payments for a month in one batch for reporting purposes. It makes it easier for them. And so instead of 30 or so payments in a batch, they're adding thousands of payments to a batch. And as you go through our interface to add consecutive payments, it gets consecutively slower to the point where when you get to about 40 or 50 payments, it's really slow. So we are looking at ways of creating a new interface for fiscal workers so that they can enter repetitive payments over and over and over again without degradation. So that's another thing we're looking at. So those are the big things. Is there any questions on anything? Once again, I'm sorry if I put you to sleep. So ask me a question, anything you want.
I'm not seeing any questions yet.
What? Somebody's going to ask, when are we going to go to the web or the cloud? Somebody's going to ask one of those hard questions. Come on. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything for you yet, Tom, but we appreciate you being here with us today and taking the time to update us all on everything that's going on. Did you have anything else, or you think unless there's questions?
We just had a question pop in saying, since you mentioned, is there discussion about SSIS Web?
We have, so Horizon allows you to run from a web page, which has kind of saved us over COVID. Running on the Horizon platform allows you to run SSIS from within a browser, and that's how almost everybody runs it now. So to create web pages, it is something we're looking at. But we can't, because SSIS is so large, how do you transition to a web system without a complete rewrite that would take 10 years? So the technical question is, how do we run both at the same time? How can we maintain our current system and run the same rules and validations against a web front end? And if we were to do that, what pieces of the application would be best to write in the web right away? What would help social workers if it was a web page versus the application? So I am curious about that answer. So we are exploring pulling out our data layer and our rules layer and putting it into RESTful services that could be consumed by a web front end if we needed to. And then it would run the same rules that our actual application runs. So we are pursuing that avenue of approach. But that would be a piece by piece sort of transition. And I am unsure which pieces of the application people would benefit most from. So if you have ideas, send us a little note. And then we're probably going to put forward a proof of concept of some module in SSIS to test using that interface. So that's in the works in our spare time, basically. So as we have free time, so we're meeting on that every week and making little incremental gains to that. I can't tell you when we would have something, but it is something we're talking about, and we're pretty far down the path of allowing our client to use RESTful services and then building a web front end to use those same rules. There is talk about possibly replatforming SSIS off of our infrastructure that we currently have and moving it to the cloud. There's a lot of trouble with such a concept, and I'll run it through you if you're interested. So all this sort of developer talk, once again, I'm sorry if I'm putting you to sleep. But our client is one thing, our app server's in between, and the database is on the other side of that. The database and the app servers have to reside in the same place. So if we move to Azure, for example, our app servers, the database has to move from on-prem up to the cloud as well. So how do you take an Oracle instance and move it up to where your app servers are? And then all of you fine people then get to run our client back on your desktop again, which means pulling the desktop application down to, or the SSI application down to your desktop, and then connecting to the cloud that way. And for those old timers, once again, older than 5 years, you remember some of the trouble we had with that. So there's a lot of things we're considering doing and looking at for proof of concept. I really can't say which of those would pan out and be actually viable, if that makes sense. So those are the long answers to your question. Okay.
Thank you, Tom. I'm not seeing anything else. So
I put them all to sleep. That's awesome.
There is another question that just came in. Since some work groups have so much data under Chronology, is there any thought on putting some years in a legacy folder under Chronology so it doesn't take as long to open and work under the Chronology node?
Right. So initial filter on years as you go down the whole tree. So only showing information over the past year for this Chronology tree and everything underneath. We'll have to think about that. I would take that away and talk to the architecture team and worker design to see if that would be something viable. I agree. I mean, kids are in foster care 22 years now. Chronology summary gets huge in those cases. And the placement folder is the same, right? I do think there needs to be some looking at the design of what's under a work group, what's under a person, what's under a placement. It seems every new module gets its node right under those, and what used to be 10 nodes is now 25 nodes, and it takes a really long time. And it's getting a little more clunky. To make it faster, you could build a deeper sort of tree structure. So right under a work group, there would only be 10 folders. And to get to a particular folder, you might have to go deeper into it. But that would be better performance. So far, there's not really been an appetite for that. Everybody wants all of their stuff up front. So that's really a Kim question, whether we could do that. Technically, we can do it, but Kim won't let me. Can I say that, Kim? She's not going to answer.
You can say whatever you want, Tom.
Thanks. I mostly just do what Kim says. That's what I do.
All right, was there anything else, Molly?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay. All right, thank you again, Tom, for being here today. And I think we'll move along. I did miss a couple people with our introductions. We have Cynthia and Darla here as panelists as well. Cynthia, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I think everybody knows me. Good morning, everybody. I'm Cynthia Shapolsky. I'm the SSIS Business Operations Supervisor. So I'm on the business side. And I just wanted to say real quick plug. Thanks, Mary, for that question. We've gotten a lot of, have tons of information about kind of those pain points. And like you mentioned, chronology, permanency, that kind of thing. So we're aware of that and have had some discussions regarding that and are excited for some potential ways to relieve that for folks. So thanks for everybody for being here this morning, and hope everybody's warm with a nice cup of whatever hot beverage you prefer.
Thanks, Cynthia. And Darla, if you want to introduce yourself next.
Hi, I'm Darla Aman. I am a worker BA in SSIS also, and probably have caused a lot of headaches for some of you guys. So hopefully we can help solve the issues.
Thanks, Darla. We do have Ross Stack and Heidi Morris here with us today too from our Learning and Development team. We're going to get started next with the SSIS fiscal portion. We can go to our next slide. And I will pass it over to Molly to get us started with that.
Thank you, Sam. So we will be running through the proofing messages that have been implemented for Family First Prevention Services into the Child Foster Care Report. We'll just go over a high-level overview of these proofing messages. They can be very complicated and complex proofing messages, and they may have a variety of various fixes. So if you have any client-specific or payment-specific questions, we just ask that you do send those into the help desk, and we can take a look at those together to try and determine what's going on. So the first proofing message we have here is proofing message 1285, QRTP placement with late or missing QRTP assessment. So in order to claim for the first 14 days of each QRTP placement, the facility must be QRTP certified on or before the 14th day of the youth's placement, and the QRTP assessment is timely. And timely means it is within 30 days of either the placement start date or facility certification date as a QRTP, whichever is later. Next slide, please. Proofing message 1286, QRTP placement with late or missing QRTP family and permanency time record. So in order to claim for the first 14 days of each QRTP placement, the facility must be QRTP certified on or before the 14th day of the placement, and the QRTP family and permanency team record was completed timely. And timely means the date the team assembled was on or before the QRTP assessment date qualified individual completed assessment. And next slide, please. So proofing message 1287 has had some variety to it over the past year. And as of right now, this proofing message is just a placeholder for our SILS proofing messages until we get the SILS messages built into SSIS, and that will be coming in 23.1. And next slide. All right, proofing message 1288, FFPSA CCI group provider placement does not have a potential specialized setting certification. So in order to claim for days 15 and after, the placement start date for the FFPSA CCI group provider placement, where the placement does not have a potential specialized setting certification. So you want to confirm that the facility does have a specialized setting, and payments would be claimable then. Next slide. Proofing message 1289, the facility not certified for service provided on service dates. So in order to claim for days 15 and after the start date of the placement, verify the service provided matches the potential specialized setting certification on the placement. Also verify the facility's certification date is on or before the payment service start date. And I will send it over to Sam and she will continue on with the remaining proofing messages.
All right, proofing message 1290, QRTP placement with late or missing QRTP assessment. This proofing message pertains to days 15 and after, whereas proofing message 1285 is for claiming up to day 14. Some of these proofing messages that I will be going over next are going to be very similar to the ones that Molly just explained. For Molly's section, the proofing messages were for claiming up to day 14 of the placement. And while these messages are very much alike, the ones I'm reading now pertain to day 15 and after of the QRTP placement. For this message with days 15 and after, the QRTP assessment was either not completed or was not completed and recorded in SSIS timely. Timely again means it is in within 30 days of either the placement start date or facility certification date as a QRTP, whichever is later. Next slide. Proofing message 1291, QRTP placement, no QRTP court approval or was not timely. To continue to claim 4E reimbursement for a QRTP placement on days 15 and after, the QRTP court review and approval is required and must be done timely. Court review is due within 60 days of either the placement start date or the facility certification date as a QRTP, whichever is later. If the review is completed but was done late, days 15 and after cannot be claimed for the placement. Next slide. Proofing message 1292, QRTP placement, QRTP court disapproval. To continue to claim 4E reimbursement for a QRTP placement, the QRTP court review and court approval must both be in place. In this case, if the court review was done timely, but the court did not approve the QRTP placement, agencies can continue to claim for up to 30 days after that court disapproval. Next slide. Proofing message 1293, QRTP placement. QRTP assessment does not recommend QRTP placement. This proofing message indicates that the QRTP assessment was completed timely. However, the qualified individual, QI, does not recommend placement in a QRTP. Agencies can only claim for up to 30 days after the completed QRTP assessment determines that the QRTP placement is not appropriate. Next slide. Proofing message 1297, QRTP placement with QRTP family and permanency team record that does not exist, is not valid for claimly or was not timely. This proofing message is very similar to 1286 that Molly went over. 1286 is essentially the same proofing message, but this shows up when you cannot claim for the first 14 days of placement. The proofing message we're looking at now for 1297 would be for days 15 and after the start date of the QRTP placement. For days 15 and after, agencies can claim Title 4E reimbursement if the QRTP family and permanency team record was completed timely and it is valid for claiming. Timely means the date team assembled was on or before the QRTP assessment state qualified individual completed assessment, and valid for claiming means there is at least one team participant with the team member field set to yes, and none of the team participants entered have their team member field left blank. Next slide. And we'll go over if anyone has any specific questions for the fiscal portion.
I'm not seeing any questions just yet.
Okay, if no one has anything, we can continue on to SSIS worker, and Erica will start us off with that.
Yes, thank you. Oh, we have a question quick. Will the child foster care report proofing message detail be updated to include these new messages?
The proofing messages are already built in SSIS. I'm not sure if I am working on updating the child foster care report proofing messages document. I'm hoping to have that published in the near future, and that does include all of these new proofing messages that we just went over. Does that answer your question, Mayra?
Okay, and we will have time at the end also to answer questions if you have any questions throughout the presentation. So, okay, SSIS worker, next slide. So in this section, we will review the QRTP potential specialized setting certification field, the relative search in SSIS, newer data cleanup errors, and the QRTP extended placement reviews. Okay, one of the things we have been seeing in the potential specialized setting certification on the placement location field is workers using the safety, stability, or another option for the reason of placement to avoid the placement being a potential specialized setting of QRTP in SSIS. It is important to make sure workers are using the correct placement and setting so that accurate information is in the system. For example, if a child or youth is in a residential program setting and the reason they are there is for treatment of their mental health, then workers need to choose for the setting residential program, and for treatment, they need to choose treatment for severe emotional disturbance. When this setting and reason are used, the system will generate data cleanup errors. However, documentation requirements are only required for placements that occur in a QRTP certified facility. These errors will not prevent workers from closing the work groups. So it's really important that we make sure that even though it does say that it is a QRTP, unless the facility is certified, you will have those errors, but you do not need to do the documentation. For more information about all the potential specialized settings, including QRTP, check out the living arrangements for specialized settings job aid on the SSIS worker documentation page under the Family First Prevention Services Act heading. Next slide. Okay, and the next thing is the relative search. Relative search is fairly new in SSIS, and it's a helpful tool to keep track of relative search information. It can also be printed off, so a copy can be provided to those involved in the case if necessary. The default columns aren't always the most helpful columns, and we have received some questions about printing the relative search grid so pertinent columns appear in the grid. In order to have other columns print, workers will need to make changes to the grid, and that's what we're going to show you in the next couple slides. On this slide, the red arrow is pointing to the column chooser. If you click on that to see, you will see all the column options in the grid. Now I want to make sure that just so you know, if all of those options are chosen, it will make it very difficult to read because they have to fit all of those options into the piece of paper. So it is very difficult to read if you choose all of them. So it's best to only click on the options that are needed. For more information about filtering grids, there are also job aids on the SSIS worker documentation page under the heading grids. Next slide. So once you have all of the columns selected that you want in your grid, the relative search is ready to print. So all you need to do is go to the action menu from the relative search screen and click on print grid. And then this is just an example of what it looks like with different columns selected. That is all I have. I will pass it on to Marcia for the rest of the sections in this worker section.
Thanks, Erica. Okay, so we have a couple of newer data cleanup messages that we wanted to talk about. We've had some questions come in. So one of the common questions that we've been getting is on one of the newer data cleanup items on the juvenile treatment screening team record. And it says juvenile treatment screening team record is incomplete. So ultimately, there's a few things that will make this error show up, but the one that seems to get overlooked or we get questions on the most is when the user forgets to add the participants. So remember, at least one participant record must be created and showing in the participant grid if you already have added clients, collaterals, or professional collaterals to the client's work group. You'll be able to just click the plus button, so you can see that screenshot here towards the bottom left, where you see the participant grid where there's a little plus sign circled. So if you don't fully complete the column info for the row that you add in the grid though, a second data cleanup will appear and tell you that at least one participant records must be complete once the date screening completed has been entered. So to be considered complete, the participant row needs to have at the very least to include the name of the participant, the relationship, notified, and attended information. So notice here, and I know this got me the first time I looked. So notice here you don't see in the grid here on the columns, you don't actually see the attended information, but there's a scroll bar. So don't forget about those scroll bars when you see them. It means there's more information they're showing. So you would just use that scroll bar to move to the left, and then you'd have an additional column there that needs to be completed. The best practice is going to be to complete this info for all participants invited and participating in the juvenile screening team meeting. Staff participating should be able to be added using the social service agency staff column dropdown. You do not need to re-add them as a collateral or professional collateral for this screen, and you should not add as a client in the work group. So names can even be easily typed in using the or type name column for the juvenile treatment screening participants. You can see that right here. And don't forget, when you get these types of errors and you're not sure what specifically is causing it, if you click on the error itself, you'll get what we call the long description or the help description, and it gives you a bit more detail, right? So in this instance, I can see, and I've highlighted it here, the problem was including not having at least one participant record created was why this particular error came up. So remember that's there for most all, I think, data cleanup messages. So if you click on the data cleanup message, you'll get a bit more detail about what it's looking for. And then this next one is really similar. So this is a data cleanup. This is another newer one, similar to the juvenile treatment screening team data cleanup. This is the QRTP family and permanency team screen, but it works a little differently. So this also requires a participant to be considered complete, and that the participant also has the role info entered. So you can see here, so there's another grid here, right? Notice there isn't a little plus on this particular grid. So this one works a little differently. So to add participants, use the action or right-click menu from this screen to add new team participants. That will open the team participant screen where you can use the team participant dropdown or use the action menu to choose to add an existing client, a new collateral, or an existing collateral. And remember, when we say, whenever we're looking at where it says add existing collateral, what that really means is it's looking for doing a search for professional collaterals that you already have added in your system. And hopefully everybody remembers professional collateral. To make a professional collateral, that means you have that employment information linked to a BizOrg. So when you add a collateral, you can create a professional collateral, right? Using that. So you don't necessarily have to add staff as a collateral or a professional collateral to the work group in order to add them in the QRTP family and permanency team. Once you create a new team participant, use the action button to find the staff by choosing to add existing collateral. Now that's only going to work if your agency has added staff as professional collaterals in the past so that they appear as an option, right? If they don't appear, you're going to have to create them as a collateral and create that collateral into a professional collateral, okay? All right, so our next topic is on the QRTP extended placement review. So I might say EPR because it's a mouthful, calculation. So there's been an update, or I should say a change. So there has been a reconsideration of policy due to additional information, which is going to impact one of the pre-planned proofing messages that was planned for the special package release we mentioned last month. So that special package release was planned for mid to late this month in December. However, due to the change, the planned package release will not be moving forward. Changes will be rolled into the 23.1 release instead. So until then, agencies will continue to use the manual QRTP extended placement review method of setting the review dates until that time. And when I say manual method, what I'm talking about is making sure that you're using these drop downs to choose the options versus when the calculation button works, which is this button right here, the calculate review period detail, which that will automatically autofill this information. So that won't actually be ready, this button, until 23.1. So though this is a late change, not exactly what we planned until within the last week here, we believe this change will really be beneficial to agencies. So previously we mentioned that later missing QRTP extended placement reviews could result in claims flipping back to day 15 of the original QRTP placement in a continuous placement episode. However, after more information and research from DHS policy, they have decided to go with a less rigid interpretation of those requirements, which is more similar to what they have been finding other states are currently doing for family claiming. So this means that rather than flipping claims, if an extended placement review is later missed, that initial review, claims will stop from the extended placement review due date going forward, so rather than flipping back. So I think that's really beneficial. In version 23.1, once the QRTP calculate review period detail button is activated, this will allow SSIS to calculate that review period detail for the QRTP extended placement review without the need for workers to manually try to figure those details out. So we still want to do that. We still think that that's a good thing. We're just not ready quite yet. Once the button has been enabled. So the function will track the current and most recent continuous placement, the applicable certified QRTP placement, age of the child on the first date of the review period, and both the consecutive and non-consecutive days that the child is in placement for which the facility is certified to provide QRTP services. Until the button is enabled, workers should continue to use the manual process currently in use. And so once it is enabled, however, that QRTP EPR calculate review period detail button will not work if the BizOrg for the placement does not have an active license or if there is not a current Lindex license linked in the BizOrg. So upon entry of placements with BizOrgs, if there is no current active Lindex link on the BizOrg, the system will alert the worker with a pop-up warning shown here. So when they go to save the placement, that's when this pop-up shows. The worker may go on and save this placement still. So you would click OK, go on and save the placement. It will allow that. This is just kind of your warning. So they should be sure when you see this though, go back. This is your kind of one shot to reminder to go back to that BizOrg and add the Lindex link to ensure that EPR calculation can occur. Of course, you'll catch it later on too when the EPR button doesn't work. But this is kind of a nice way to catch that up. So for the extended placement review calculation to calculate correctly, the QRTP placement and end dates need to be entered as the actual day the child or youth leaves the facility. So different agencies are doing this slightly different. I think most are doing this way already, but we do know that some sometimes have been entering it where it's like the last night slept. So we want to make sure that it's not being entered as out the day before, so that the last night slept and then you're entering like the new placement today, right? If you're starting a new placement the following day, so you may have placements ending on a date, the next placement starting the same day, right? This may be a change of practice for some agencies who may be entering that last night slept as the end date rather than the actual day out, but it's going to be really important that everyone does this the same for these. Not entering the actual day out as the end date will risk that the extended placement review consecutive and non-consecutive days will not be counted accurately. So particularly those non-consecutive days is what I'm concerned about. So for example, non-consecutive extended placement review may be counting days across multiple QRTP placement spans, right? So to do this correctly, the system needs to be able to look at all the days in each QRTP, and then the system is going to, when it's doing that calculation, it's going to subtract one day to account for the day out. So if you are not entering the day out in the placement, so you're subtracting that, and then the system is also subtracting it, we're going to be multiple days short, especially when there's multiple QRTPs across a continuous placement episode. So you want to make sure everyone's doing this in the same way so that we can have the calculation work correctly. And we believe the majority of agencies are entering placements this way already, but we wanted just to make a note so everyone is aware that really needs to be done this way so that your days are correct. So this is the QRTP extended placement review screen once again. So I wanted to point out a couple of things. So there's that calculate review button that we talked about. I'm sorry, it says calculate review period detail, right? So that's that calculation button that we're talking about. And then we also have that section down below where it's the agency review and status section. So if a QRTP placement closes after the 30-day alert would have been generated. So remember now at this point, we don't have that 30-day alert yet. That's coming in 23.1. But currently, if you're within that 30-day threshold where an extended placement review would be coming due, right? It's recommended that that QRTP extended placement review is completed before closing the placement. So if you were, for example, going to close a QRTP placement, extended placement review is within that 30 days, before the EPR is completed, let's say on day 25, right? So you have 5 more days before that due date. You decide we're closing this QRTP placement, they're going to move somewhere else. The continuous placement episode is continuing. So before that happens, we want you to complete that EPR. Otherwise, what happens is if the EPR from the original placement was not completed, since the non-consecutive days are still being counted, right? They're just going to resume counting, say, when we go into another QRTP placement in that continuous placement episode. This means the worker in this example would only have 5 days now because we already passed 25 days of the 30 days. So 5 days remaining at the very start of that new QRTP placement to complete the extended placement review and have it approved. And another alert is not generated. So they originally got that other 30-day alert, which is going to start happening in 23.1. If they had gotten that in the first QRTP, let's say 6 months later, in the same continuous placement episode, the child enters another QRTP placement episode, then they don't get another alert because the alert is already in the system. So you don't get a reminder. So again, best practice is going to be to ensure that you're doing, when you're going to close that EPR, if you're within 30 days of that review period to date, that you're making sure you still complete the EPR, okay? I would do it like the day before or the day that you're closing it to ensure that that is done and you're not going to run into problems down the road. So during the previous coffee talk, we talked a little bit about this and how this is going to work. And we were really talking, I had mentioned that the review date could be backdated, but this is really not accurate any longer. So that screen has been updated. I think I had said that the approver's review date was editable. However, it's not actually the case and it's a little misleading. So we are making some changes on this. So while the approver from the approval log currently does appear able to save their approved information. So for example, in the approval log, the approver is checking the little I confirm box, they're entering the reviewed by information, the title, autofills, and then you see the little drop down review date. So it appears that you can choose the date that you want to say you reviewed something. And then if you click save, it appears to save. However, remember, you actually have to click on the action button and choose approve to approve this. So saving doesn't do it. You have to actually click on the approve button from the action button. Once you do that, this review date actually changes to the system generated date of whatever the day is today, right? So it's really going to be replaced. Whatever you had in there is going to be replaced with today's date. So this makes it especially important to ensure that workers are submitting the extended placement review approvals within adequate time for the approvers to review and approve within that 30-day period, right? Before the review period to date. The review date will need to be dated on or before the review period to date for the extended placement review to be considered timely. We do plan to make the approval log functionality a little clearer, a little less misleading. So hopefully in this next release. So the agency review and status section won't be savable when using save. Instead, you'll have to save by choosing your action item, which will be approve, deny, those types of options. from the action menu. And we will also make the review date field not appear as though it's editable, because I think this is a little misleading. So since it's not actually editable, I'm sorry, hard to say, but a system generated date based when the review information is approved or denied within SSIS. And here's a screen that kind of brings all like the potential claiming issues together for these EPRs. So here's a list of various effects on claiming for the different EPRs. Missing any extended placement review stops the agency from being able to claim federal Title IV-E reimbursement for the remainder of that continuous placement, right? So the specific date that claiming stops is going to vary depending on which review was missed. So if it was the initial review, the extended placement review date is the day after extended placement review date. We don't have the initial review entered. The next day, there's no more claiming. We're done claiming for 4E. From the first of the month in which the extended placement review was due, that's how it's going to work for the subsequent review. So subsequent reviews, let's say your second or third extended placement review down the road, from the first of the month, if you miss it or you're late, from the first of the month after, the first of the month of the extended placement review due date, that's when that's going to stop. So the other important piece is to remember that denials are important to get entered timely as well. So timely denials of an extended placement review apply to that particular QRT placement only. The approver is saying that, hey, this child needs to be transitioned out of that setting. And the agency then is given up to 30 days to accomplish that transition while being able to continue to claim for those particular 30 days. So be able to claim for a new QRTP setting as well during that same continuous placement, should the child need that again, as long as the other requirements are being met. So I think this is kind of a nice slide, I would say. All right, what do we have for questions?
We have a few.
Great, I figured.
Joanne Shaw has a couple here. So the first one is, how will that 30-day alert work via reminders and alerts? Yeah,
so it's not in yet, Joanne, it's coming in 23.1, but yeah, it's going to go to so whoever's on and Kim or Darla, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that it will go to the reminders and alerts log for the worker that has, that's linked to the placement work group. Does that sound correct, Darla, Kim?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and so something also to remember, and Joanne, you're probably pretty familiar, I'm sure a lot of people are, but supervisors, if you're set up in a way where you can see your, like you can view others' reminders and alerts, so a lot of times supervisors are set up that way, or other particular admin or lead workers, then that means you can use that grid in order to search for those particular new alerts as well. So you'll be able to use that for some tracking purposes for coming due EPRs or late EPRs as well. Hopefully that helps.
And then Joanne's second question is, does that mean if we do the EPR on day 25, if the child enters a new QRTP placement, they won't have to do a EPR on day 5 of that new placement?
Correct. And Darla or Kim, maybe you can speak to this one. I think how that works is that kind of starts the timeline over. Is that right?
Right. Once the extended placement review is completed, then the timeline starts over. So, yep, that's the point of completing that review once they're within that 30-day window of needing to have it completed. Yep.
Thank you. Good question.
Okay, and then we have one question in our chat from Bonnie Parker, and I believe Sam or I will have to answer this one, but this goes back to the discharge date question. So some places charge for day out, and then we get a message that there's no placement with those service dates. What do we do in that case? So you're only able to claim 1 day if there's like an overlap. So our suggestion would be, our best practice would be to split the payment on the placement that is day out. So you wouldn't claim that last day out in Title 4E reimbursement, but you would claim the day in at the new placement. Is that helpful, Bonnie?
And I think with what we're suggesting, the way we're suggesting we enter the placements is that we want them to enter it through that end date. And so the placement dates would cover that end date, right? So that they would have that end date through the end date that the facility is charging for.
Correct, but I think the question is, so if you have a placement that ends on December 30th, and then you have a placement that starts on December 30th, although you're paying 2 facilities, you can only claim 4E for one of those payments on that particular date.
Yep, and you can, placement entry allows you to have the end date of one placement the same as the start date of another. The times just cannot overlap.
Thank you for pointing that out, Kim. That's a good pointer. You are able to add the time, a time. So if the youth leaves placement 1 at 10 a.m. on December 30th, and then is that placement 2 at 2 o'clock on December 30th, be sure to enter the time in those placement episodes.
So then do counties just eat the cost of the extra day then? I'm sorry, I'm jumping in here when I shouldn't, but I'm just curious.
Unfortunately, yes, they do. There are facilities that charge day out where child family foster care is based on nights slept. So there can be overlap when the facilities are billing agencies.
Sure.
Other questions? Anything else out there, Molly? Otherwise, I will send it on.
Oh, sorry, nope, I'm not seeing anything more.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So I believe next up is Shauna with the help desk.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's actually morning still. Good morning, everybody. I just have some reminders and just some information about the help desk. First, just introducing the help desk itself. Want to just say that we are supported by many wonderful people here at DHS. We are part of the SSIS BizOps unit. When you email the help desk from your agency, we may need to work closely with some people in our unit, such as our SMEs that you've heard before me, and or some people outside our unit. One example of outside our unit would be minute staff, or who you might hear us refer to as technical staff, tier 2, or just Dave and Janelle. Every ticket is first taken by one of our help desk staff, which at the present time includes myself and Stacy Stoner. We determine if we can assist, if there's more questions we need to ask, if it needs to be sent to policy or technical staff, or if it needs to be sent to our subject matter experts. I'm sure you're all used to the lovely auto response email that's just automatically done from our system. We don't have anything we do with that, it just automatically sends it. It just says, hello, we've received your request. The email has been forwarded to the appropriate person for processing. However, you should receive a personalized email signed by myself or Stacy within a 24-hour period that is either asking you some more questions or saying that we've gotten your email and that we're working in the priority that we are able to. If you do not get that email, please do let us know. And like I said, we try to get those done within the 24-hour period of time so that you know that we've received it, since that first auto message is kind of vague. All right. You have the next slide, Marcia. What I'm going to go over is just some reminders of frequent items that we do see at the help desk. One that I want to start with is just who can contact the help desk. We have supervisors, IT staff, and SSIS mentors. I know it's kind of hard to limit to these people, but it does help us in trying to respond to the number of tickets that we get a day. I have an example of the week of July 25th. The help desk received over 224 tickets. That's an average of almost 45 a day. And again, that's with 2 people at the present time, but will be 3 people. So I should have brought that up on the last slide, that if hopefully soon you will be posted for a new, Sam left us to be with the Fiscal, so we do have a position open that will be posted soon. So if SSIS is your thing and you would like to join the help desk, please let us know. We'll have some further information in the update. I'm sure when we get more details of when that is posted, but keep it in mind. It is a great job and I very much enjoy it. So again, SSIS supervisors, IT staff, SSIS mentors are who can contact us. Please remember that if you have a change in mentors or somebody leaves, please do let us know when you need somebody added or taken off. And you just can email the help desk that we get it to wonderful Heidi, our mentor coordinator, and then I update some stuff at the help desk for that also. The one big thing that we have issues with the help desk is contracted workers need to contact the county that they are contracted with. These are agencies that have contracted with the county, and we can't assist them because we can't know who all is contracted. So we always tell them they need to contact the county. Occasionally, if they can't find someone to talk to, we might forward the email from the help desk to a mentor. We won't give out your email to them, but just to kind of get some help for somebody who might be stuck and not being able to get into SSIS or any other issues such as that. We do have some contact information for bigger agencies that we do give the contracted workers to. Another big part that I wanted to mention about contracted workers is it may mean a social worker, even a vendor with your agency that's contacting. When changing county accounting systems, say that 5 times fast. It's important that we have contact with the help desk on those kind of changes in your systems. So the mentor would need to contact the help desk so that fiscal operations can do what they need to do on that one. Next slide. So again, this is just going to be some frequent items that we see at the help desk. One of the biggest things is data fixes. When you're requesting a data fix, please provide a clear reason as why you're requesting the data fix. Also provide information that would be helpful with the data fix, such as a person number or the intake work group number. We will ask if there's any other clarification that we need for a data fix. The one thing I was asked to bring up about data fix is reconcile a client. Data fix has sent a lot of emails where they reply that the the client will be on the reconcile on the clearing log, and people are kind of confused what that means. So what that is when our data fix does something, it sends it to the clearing log or reconcile. The reconcile on the clearing log is an agency process of reconciling the differences between Swindex database and the agency database. You do these as normal. I mean, clearing people are going to know all these very well, as they do them all the time. So if you do have questions, do ask your clearing person. The clearing is just a process to ensure there's no duplicate clients entered in the SSIS database. The next thing we just wanted to say, if your data fix is urgent, please put in the subject urgent and explain why it's urgent, so we can try to prioritize that ticket and get it done as soon as possible for you. The last thing is, if a data fix is not required for data integrity, it can be denied. We will reply to your email and we'll let you know that. And if you have any questions, you should sure just let us know by replying to that email. Next slide. A big thing we see a lot at the help desk is pre and post adoptive identity issues. When an adoption takes place, a new identity must be entered in SSIS, and this is just like a new PMI. A number is assigned to each adopted child. That doesn't matter if there is a name change. A lot of times the names might not change at all, but we still need to enter that new person into SSIS. Also, the social security number can stay the same. I think most of the time we do see that between the pre and post adoptive identity. And that is another, we still need to enter these both separately. We do have a lot of requests for data fixes because work groups or intakes are entered after the date of adoption, and they're entered under the post or the pre-identity. And so now we've got the mixture of pre-post information crossing. This is a very time-consuming and difficult data fix for not only the help desk, as we write up all the data fix information, and there's some stuff that we have to do behind the scenes for our data fix people, but also there's one person who does these technical data fixes. So this can be very time-consuming if we have a pre-post data adoptive data fix issue. Next slide. Another thing we see at the help desk is PMI not being in SSIS. So if you search for a PMI in state search in SSIS and you cannot find the PMI number there, you would need to request a PMI push. All you need to do is just email the help desk a PMI number. If you want to put the initials just so that we can verify that we've got the right person, that's fine, but we don't need any more details than that. And then you don't have to really worry about secure emails or anything like that. And we can just push that PMI. When we do push the PMI, we will let you know that we've pushed it. And we send an email kind of explaining some information as to why you might not have seen a change. The biggest one that I've seen at the help desk why there hasn't been a change is when there's multiple PMIs and both the multiple PMIs all use the social security number. When you go to the state clearing log, it's automatically looking for the first social security number it finds. So it normally will pick the incorrect PMI number that you don't want. In those cases, if you take out the social security number and clear the client again, when you get to the state clearing, it won't automatically clear. It'll actually bring up the box and it'll give you the multiple PMIs so you can select which one is easier or is the one that you want in SSIS. The last thing is if information was entered into MMIS within this month, we are unable to push the PMI. That doesn't mean that when it was active in MMIS. So if we've got an entry in December, the kid is active back to October, but it was entered December 3rd, we aren't able to push that PMI until after January 10th. So you'll get an email just saying, please let us know again after that, the 10th of the next month, and we can push that PMI for you. If you ever have any questions on PMI pushes or any of that, just let us know, and we'll be glad to help you on that. Next slide. Unknown participant is another big one that we see at the help desk, mostly in the adult maltreatment area, but anywhere we never want to enter a participant of unknown. For adult protection, if the perpetrator is unknown, just enter a description. The name is not required. There is the same thing in the role tab, and a description is all that's needed. Our adult protection policy has done a wonderful job of documenting all this information in the adult maltreatment module, which we've put the link here, and it's going to be also at the end of the presentation. And they are constantly updating that, and they do an excellent job. One thing that we've come into lately is that we've been seeing a few cases where the victim is unknown in an adult protection case. And currently I'm looking into this. There's an issue because you need to have the person cleared in order to enter time. However, in these cases where the victim is not known at all, it won't allow you to do that unless you clear a victim. So I am working on that right now, and I hope to have some updates for that in the future. Next slide. So another big question we get at the help desk is purge and record retention. A lot of times that question is, why is there no destruction date, or why is a destruction date in the past and the work group is still in SSIS? Well, there's a few things that can cause those issues. Someone in the case has a TPR, so those will never purge. And now when you remember case, not work group, so if someone in the case has a TPR would cause that. Sometimes that's a little bit harder to look into, but we can look into that and figure that out together. The second one is if there's a payment tied to the work group, this will not purge. Fiscal doesn't have a purge rule for payments at this time, so all payments stay in SSIS, nothing purges. So when you're making a payment, if you select the work group when you made the payment, that work group is not going to purge because of the payment. Is there a placement tied to this work group? If yes, that'll extend the purge date out to after the client's 31st birthday. Is there an appeal? Another reason that can extend the destruction date. And the last reason that we see a lot of are there other work groups in the case with the same sub-program? The date would then change to the latest destruction date of the work group in the case with that same sub-program. If you find a work group that you're just not sure why is the date changed, please just let us know. You can just send an email to the help desk with just the work group number. Just say you're not sure why this isn't purging. We do have some tools to be able to look, and we can get at least some details of, it has a TPR, or we can have some higher information, at least to get you started on why it's not purging. So please do email the help desk if you see any of those issues. Next slide. The next thing I want to talk about is statewide case access. First off, I am going to say statewide case access is a little bit harder, at least for me at the help desk, because we are unable to access statewide access like you do. Since we have access to all the agencies in the state, we can't access it or test it or do anything like you do when you do that. So sometimes those tickets are a little bit more difficult for us. But one thing we've been told is using alert and reminders is a wonderful, or an easy, it will make it a little bit easier for you to look at. And again, like I said, no way for us to test that. The other thing we've been told is you need to select one work group per case. Selecting multiple work groups can create multiple users in other agencies, and you'll have problems logging in. And in that case, if you have problems logging into statewide access, all you have to do, the mentors just have to email the help desk with the person's name, the agency they're trying to access, if they have the SSIS user ID that they're trying to use in that state or in that county statewide access. And if they know of a work group, it's not something that we have to have, but that's something we can go into the other county just to see if that person is listed as a secondary worker. We can look up information just to see if there's some doubles or if there's some other information or something going on with that and work through why the person can't get logged in. If there is multiple users, we do send it over to our technical team, tier 2, to merge them so they all have one. So then we will let you know what that one is and go from there. I just wanted to point out the SSIS user ID for your agency does not help us, as we cannot search in admin for a person for that. So just your user's name is all we need, and that's helpful. Next slide, just some technical issues. I know we go through this once a week with tier 2, so then I didn't want to touch too much on that. I just wanted to say that they change frequently. If you send in screenshots of error messages, that's really helpful to us. Remember to look at the known SSIS Horizon issues listed on the website, and there is a link here and will be later on. They are good about tier 2 and Minute staff updating that information if there is something that's ongoing issues. The other thing that's helpful is to make sure you sign up for the SSIS update. If we see that there's issues, we might put some information in there. And the last is just to make sure your list of mentors and coordinators are up to date. You might have seen with the last few issues, you will get an email sent out from tier 2 and let you know that we might have the system might be down or there's something going on. And so he uses that mentor coordinator, or uses the mentor list to send those emails out. So it's important to have those up to date. And then my last slide is on MAPCs. The frequent question that we get at the help desk on MAPCs is, can we delete a MAPC? There's limited reasons to delete a MAPC. Most of the time, the MAPC can be reversed or copied. The reverse MAPC is only used to modify the needs or indicators of an existing assessment while maintaining the same effective date. This option would be used during an appeal or when SSIS templates change. The copy MAPC option is used to copy the needs and indicators from a previous assessment to a new assessment. This is useful for completing a reassessment or when a child's placement changes, and there are only minor changes to make. If one of these options don't fix what you need, you can email the help desk and request them to request us to unfinalize a MAPC. We do have to get policy approval for that kind of data fix, so we do send it to policy to make sure that there's nothing policy-wise that's creating the issue. And if that's not it, and the only thing that would fix this would be a data fix, we will do a data fix. However, if payments have been made using that MAPC, a data fix will be denied. And if there's any reason policy would deny a data fix for a MAPC, we'll respond by email and let you know. It might be that there's, it's within the first 30 days, or policy is really good about explaining and helping us explain why why would those be denied. Next slide is just if we have questions, which I see we do have a few.
Do you want me to read them, Shauna? And then we can.
Yep, and then we can go through each of them.
Yep.
I just want to, before we start that, I just want to thank everybody for being so patient and helpful with the help desk. If you're ever not understanding what's being said in an email, please feel free to, just in your email say, can we please talk by phone, or ask if we can set up a meeting. We've been meeting virtually with some people just so that we're on the same page and look at the same screens together. So please do that if that is something that would be helpful to you. But I just want to thank everybody because we have some awesome mentors, and it's been great working with all of you, and you're all so helpful. So you're very appreciated.
Well, that kind of segues into the first question. So Don Klingman asked, Does the SSIS help desk phone still work? Sometimes you just need to talk.
Totally understand that, Dawn. So when the state with COVID got sent home, we're having problems trying to figure out how do you make a phone ring for the 3 different desks that we are the people who answer for the help desk. So that's where we've had the problem. So what happens right now is if you call, it goes to a voicemail, and then we get the voicemail in our ticketing system and we call you back or email you from that. Feel free, like I said, to either leave the message that you would like a call back, or if not, you send an email saying you'd rather have a call. It is sometimes helpful for us to be able to look up information before we call you back. Or sometimes it's easier for us to email you, but if we send you an email and that does not make sense to you, do reply and say, yes, I would like to have a phone call, and we will gladly do that.
Thank you for answering that. And then we have a couple questions on the adoption topic. So should the post-adoptive child be entered in SSIS even if they do not return for services after adoption is completed?
That's a very good question. It doesn't necessarily have to be added. I guess we see the major problem is when reassessments are requested for the adopted child, and then there is no child in the system. When a reassessment is requested, you do need to make a intake to be able to process that request. So it's more of when that child comes back, and then remembering that this child's been adopted and making sure there's a new identity on those cases.
All right, and Teresa Guest asked if the adopted client will not be living in the county of adoption, does the new identity need to be entered in the county of adoption then?
Again, that goes back to no, and you should not need to unless you will do, I believe the reassessments get sent to the county that the adoption happened in. So you should be alerted by DHS if that were to happen.
Okay, and then Myra has a question. Is there a way to lock down a pre-adoption identity so that no new services can be opened under that SSIS person and force staff to create a new person?
So pre-adoption identities do lock down if the adoption is taking place here in just the person node. It's not for work groups or anything like that. So I don't know about forcing it, if that would be an enhancement request. That might.
This is Kim. It's something that we've checked into in the past, but it's not something that we've had a lot of time to actually implement. But we know it's an issue because we keep, dealing with it when people start, opening work groups on the wrong identity. So it is something that we'd like to figure out how to do, but we just don't have a resolution to it. So we do think it's a good idea though, but we haven't had time to figure out what should be locked down and how to do it.
Thank you, Kim.
Yep.
All right, the next question, Joanne Shaw. Is there anyone looking into the issues with users getting the invalid username/password? Users who know how to do a request can routinely get these error messages, and constantly going to the state delays users being able to get information timely from another county.
I'm guessing, is that for the statewide access? I just want to clarify. I'm thinking it's probably statewide access. I know we do get invalid password user passwords when logging into SSIS, but that's normally something's incorrect. When getting it in statewide access, again, that would be because the person most of the time is because the person has multiple user IDs in that county. I think my record that I sent over was like 40 IDs that technical staff had to merge into one. So that's where that problem is caused when it's being requested. And again, that goes back to requesting one work group in a case and not requesting multiple work groups. But if it didn't answer your question, please do follow up.
Thanks, Shauna. All right, we have, oh, Joanne responded back here. No, we have workers who know to make only one request and they still can get that error each time they do statewide access.
In those cases, Joanne, we'd have to see and look into that. Again, to verify there isn't multiple requests. I know I have not seen many that come in that's an invalid user password. That is because that it's just an invalid username or password. A lot of times it is because there's multiple ones. So please just send those in right away, and we will have to look at those on a case-by-case basis.
Thanks, Shauna. All right, so Tracy asked, even though I'm a mentor, I do view the intake log, but have noticed recent unknown in the clearing log. I assume the MARC staff are entering this as the potential perp on adult maltreatment reports. Is there follow-up training for them? This is difficult to fix.
Sadly, the MARC part of SSIS and our part of SSIS are two different things. So MARC doesn't have a choice other than to do unknown. So it ends up falling on the agency to clean that up once it comes over.
Hey, Shauna, this is Marsha. I would just add on to that one too, is it's best if you, and it's easiest, because I ran into those as well, where they can be hard to fix. It's easiest to fix if they're checking for those unknowns right at the intake level and they're fixing it there versus getting it all the way into, assessment. And now it's, in everything else wrong all the way down the line. If they can fix it at the intake level, and then, if they find out who that person is, add it later, they'll have an easier time of it.
Very good point, Marsha. Thank you.
All right, next question, Kelly Madsen. Is there any way to get these pre and then post adoption identities off of the data integrity report, Swindex records with same name and date of birth?
Sadly, no. There's items on the data integrity report that are incorrect. You just have to skip over them. There's no way for you to be able to say, we figured this out. Don't say it anymore. I know the one example that I give a lot, just from my experience of being in the county, when I did data integrity reports, I would just kind of keep track every month so that, the ones that I might need to skip over the next month or two, or who knows how long, that I would see just on my written piece of paper, just skip this one so that I didn't go in and research it anymore. I know that makes it a little harder for time, and I totally get that, but right now there's not any other way to get that off that report.
Right, we did have a couple of suggestions from a couple of the mentors here in the meeting regarding the pre and post adoptive. So Mary Doherty suggested, she said we add pre-adoptive / confidential under address for the pre-adoptive client ID, so we don't use the pre-adoptive client when creating new intakes and work groups.
Well, that's a good idea, Mary.
And then Joanne Shaw said, Hennepin County, we found putting an A in the county person number field helps us because it stops payments from being processed for the pre-adoptive ID. So just
Another
a
good
couple,
one.
yep, couple suggestions, and those are very good suggestions. And we do have a couple questions in the chat. Brenda Brown asked, we have one PMI that we have been waiting on since April. Should it take this long? This one is a multiple PMI.
I wish I had answers as to why we have to push PMIs and how long it takes for a PMI to go without being pushed. And I haven't been able to get that information. And I apologize. Hopefully I can get that and have it in an update soon. But for right now, if you can't find the PMI looking on your state search, just send an email to the help desk saying, I can't locate this PMI. Give us the PMI number and we will look to see if we can push it. If you want to send one in, Brenda, I will watch for your email and look at that one right away.
Thanks, Shauna. And I think we just have one last question, and it's from Myra Lopez. Why can't destruction dates be updated to follow the new retention rule? For example, if it is tied to a payment.
With that, you can update them if you go into admin and date them. It's not going to be something automatically done. I don't know if anybody else has.
I would just say, well, you can set things out. But payment hasn't, the payment rules haven't been built in, just again, due to staffing resources and time resources to do that purge work. It just hasn't been built into the system. So my understanding is at this time, you know, the easiest thing that we could do is prevent those from purging. So we don't have the rules built in so that it updates the destruction date and all of that, but we prevent those from purging until we can get that built into purge.
Yeah, that one you can go in and update and admin the purge date, but the other reasons.
Yeah, in admin, you can set out the purge, or I mean, the destruction date, but it's not, I mean, you can set it to what you think it should be kind of thing, but ultimately it's not going to allow the system, it's not going to allow that to purge until we build in the rules around payments.
Thank you, Marcia.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else, Molly? We have a couple of slides left we wanted to get through and we're past our time.
I don't see any further.
Thank you.
Hold on, we just received one.
Sure.
So if some work groups aren't purging because of payments or claims, can the files be destroyed?
I mean, I would consult your county attorney, I would always say on that kind of thing. I know in my previous county, that was something that we would never do. You don't want like half of the story, I guess I would say. You don't want just the SSIS stuff, but not the electronic file. I think you always want to keep all of it. If SSIS hasn't purged it, that was always the recommendation that we got, but you would want to consult your county attorney and records retention people.
And she also followed up, this is from Lisa Weffelmeyer. I'm sorry if I chopped up your name here, but she followed up with what are other counties doing on this? So if other mentors on this meeting want to throw something in the chat to respond to Lisa, you can certainly do that.
Anything else out there, Molly?
Nope, I don't see any other questions.
All right, let's move on just so we can get anybody who's still sitting on here with us finished up. Thank you, guys. So I think we just wanted to talk a little bit about the resources. So these are some of the links that we have, are resources that we use during this training, but most of these can also be found on our SSIS worker documentation or SSIS fiscal documentation or the SSIS resources page. So I was going to show how to get to that really easy. If you don't have that favorited on your browser, I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to share my other screen real quick. Let's see, here we go. So you should see I'm just Googling, I like Google. So I have Google up here. And you could just write in SSIS. Actually, I usually start with Minnesota DHS if I'm Googling something, make sure I get the right one. I say SSIS resources. Oops, if I can spell. And it's the very first one that pops up. And again, you could favorite this if that's easier. So once you pop it up, oops, let's see, let's open it up. So this is the page that you can find a lot of our stuff at. So one thing we want to point out is there's a lot of Horizon related resources. The technical team I know has pointed this out a couple of times at their open discussion meetings as well. Oops, hopefully this is still, you can hear me. But here's those SSIS Horizon related ones. There's the SSIS Mentor Program page, which you can get to right here, which has the SSIS Mentor Manual, which is really helpful. It was updated, I think, within the last year. The SSIS Update Archive has all of the updates out there. So I think sometimes they take up to 2 weeks or so to post, but those are out there so you can look back at any of the recent updates. The SSIS release information to find recent or upcoming release information. So you can find those things there. Our SSIS training section has the SSIS worker documentation page as a worker SME. This is what I use the most. We also have the fiscal documentation page. So as fiscal SMEs, you might use this one quite a bit. Lots of job aids, resources, that kind of thing on both those pages. We also recently added the SSIS Coffee Talk archive. So like this Coffee Talk, as well as our other Coffee Talks are listed there. And that is on the Minnesota Child Welfare Training Academy site. So we just have a link over to that so you can get these presentations. You can rewatch them or find the resources that we posted with them. And then I just want to do a little shout out for our Fiscal online training. Remind people, I know we're not having the Fiscal classes currently. However, we do have the Fiscal online training. So those web-based classes are still available under this Fiscal online training. So check that out. I will jump back to our PowerPoint. We just have, I think, 2 slides left. So, oops, if I can find it there. And, oh, for goodness sakes, I think I had the wrong one. Let's try this one more time. And, oh, now I lost it. Fabulous. All right, give me 1 second. You know, we practice this and then you still easily mess it up. Okay, and I need this one here, PowerPoint. So share. And we'll go back down to the bottom. Sorry for taking an extra second there. And we skipped over, here we go. Okay. So there's we also want to remind everyone, obviously, SSIS Help Desk, contact them. They are fabulous, great team over there. And there's those other links. So we want to do a little shout out for our January Coffee Talk. We're going to do something a little different. So this January, we're going to really look at doing something similar to with the weekly technical open discussion sessions that have been helpful and well received. We want to offer that for our coffee time. So as an SSIS open discussion. So this session won't have a scheduled topic. Instead, while we may have a couple of updates and reminders to cover, bulk of the time is going to be to provide an opportunity for agency staff to ask questions, provide feedback, and share agency processes with each other. So we're going to have an array of DHS staff on hand to try and answer your SSIS related questions. Oh, I'm hearing I'm not sharing. Oops, sorry. Thanks.
Sorry about that, Marcia. I was going to try letting you know that you weren't sharing, and I didn't want to cut you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Actually, let's see why that's not sharing. Okay, December Coffee
Do you want me to
Talk.
try?
Yeah, well, if you have it up in front of you, that'd be awesome. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to let me back in. I thought I had, we were all set.
Okay. All right, come on, let's share.
Yeah, it doesn't like us today. There, thank you so much. Okay,
Let's
yeah,
probably
you
put
can,
this on.
that's all right.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So we're going to have an array of DHS staff on hand to try to answer your SSIS related questions. We hope that this will allow for a bit more interaction and discussion than our usual coffee talk sessions. And if you find helpful, we might even start incorporating that a few times throughout the year. So of note, we wanted to make note that the platform for the coffee talk, so right now it's Zoom, but after this month, it's going to be WebEx. Our contract with Zoom is ending. So, and we know that there's been agencies that have had some issues with us doing it on Zoom. It doesn't always work for every agency. So we're going to try going to WebEx starting in January. And then our last slide there, if you want to go on there. We want to say, this is our mentor of the month. So we started that last month, and this month we want to celebrate Lori Plessel from Pine County. Lori is December's mentor of the month. Lori is a wonderful agency partner. Hopefully she's still on here. That is often helpful in reporting issues and helping with subsequent problem solving and testing efforts. This month, Lori and her team scheduled a special session with our SME staff, give her agency the opportunity to work through some of their questions throughout SSIS. We appreciate, we appreciate you, Lori and team. Thank you. If your agency is interested in setting up an individual agency session with our SSIS staff in person or virtual, please contact our help desk. We can work on that. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for bearing with us as we went over a little.